Hello, listener. Happy new league year to you, and welcome to the 99 Yards podcast, American football for UK fans. On the pod with me this week, we have Shona Duffy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you very much. And with me is Duncan Terry as well. How are you doing, sir?
Very good. Very good. Happy New Year to you guys.
Thank you very, very much. Now, in case you are wondering, listener, Liz has not got a much deeper voice. I am your host today, Ryan Conway. I've been drafted in as the backup while Liz is down in London. But don't you worry about that. We've got so much to get through, haven't we, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. That's the excitement I was after on the first pod of the league year. Good. So in this week's episode, we're going to be talking all about free agency. There's been some big moves going on, as I'm sure you've been keeping abreast on the old Twitter or whatever social media it is that you use. But Shona, we're going to start with you, and we're going to start with Le'Veon Bell, who has now got a team and looks like he will actually play a game of football. He got his money. He got 4 years, $52.5 million with the New York Jets. Good deal for him. Good deal for the Jets. And is he worth it?
Well, I mean, it is a good deal for him. That's what he's been, waiting out for. And obviously he didn't get that from the Steelers. But are the Jets really going to be challenging for the Super Bowl next season? Most likely not. So they still have a lot of things they need to eradicate in that team. And also they have their new coach in Adam Gase. And to me, he didn't do enough at the Dolphins to get a new job, but hey, I'm not a GM, so obviously I'm in the wrong in that sense. To me, it's just a little bit like players nowadays just seem to value money over a ring, because it's going to be quite difficult, I think, for him. He's in his prime, but he's not he's not a one-man player that can just take a team to a Super Bowl. Obviously it's a collective thing. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, Duncan, as Shona just mentioned, that this is not a New York Jets team that's going to be challenging for the playoffs, for a Super Bowl. Every player wants to be challenging, and we've seen the same thing with Antonio Brown, which we'll get onto later. The Jets have brought in Kelechi Osemele at guard, perhaps trying to shore up what will now be probably a run first offense. Your thoughts on the Jets moves and the Bell moves specifically?
Well, they had to help Sam Darnold, don't they? And if they got someone great in the backfield to hand the ball to, one out of every two downs, then they're saving Sam Darnold from getting hit. But Bell's going to be frustrated behind that line. I know they've got the new guard, and he's a great player, Osemele, but they've also got Jamison Crowder, I believe, while receiving now. He's going to really help them out. So, they've done their job in getting Darnold some help. His contract is 4 years, which will run in line with Darnold's contract year. So, if when salary cap becomes an issue when they re-sign Sam Darnold, maybe Bell won't be there anymore. Maybe he'll be too old. Maybe he's, as a running back, he will have exhausted everything he has to offer. But he's had his year off. So it's going to be interesting, isn't it? I mean, seeing what he's got left in the tank, it should be quite a lot.
Absolutely. And I mean, I will say this to the point that the Jets aren't contenders. We've seen this a couple of years now, where a team basically blows the machine up and brings in players for a win now mode. Let's win within these next 2 or 3 years, and that seems to be the trend that a lot of teams are taking. Obviously, the Browns look like they are edging towards that, just going all in, winning now or next year. The Rams have done it. Obviously, their big ticket items can't all stay there. That's not, the Jets could do that. I suppose that the bigger question would be if you would trust the GM, the head coach, to get all those things into place where you can get an 11-win season and go to the postseason. In the 4 years that Bell's there, at least 4 years.
Absolutely, and absolutely not. I don't trust Adam Gase or Greg Williams as far as I can throw them when it comes to coaching the teams. But they're bringing in decent players, so they're doing they're ticking the right boxes so far. And it's free agency, and that's what it's for. So it remains to be seen, doesn't it? It's
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. Just a quick one before we move on to the next former Steeler. when we talk about the running back market, they want to pay the position, not the player. We've seen out Gurley, he's annually at $14 million. David Johnson annually at 13. Devonta Freeman annually at $8.25 million, and then LaShawn McCoy-Shady at $8 million. It looks like Bell comes in just under Gurley in terms of annual salary. Of course, the guarantees, I think, are what Bell is after. I mean, it's pretty fair to say that. It's Le'Veon Bell. He's going to get Todd Gurley money. Should we be overly wild about, because the thing is, all these big numbers come out, and actual facts, we know that so many players won't even see a lot of that money. Are we wild about the money? Do we think it's too much?
I think, to be honest, it's kind of just a reflection of what is going on with every position in the league at the minute. If you look at the deal that Nick Foles got with the Jaguars, like, that to me is like it kind of just reflects what's going on. I think I don't agree with how much money they're all being paid, but if Todd Gurley is already on that amount of money, he's the highest paid player, then Bell's going to want what he's got, and that's the rhetoric with every position in the league, I think, at the minute.
Dunk, we are going to move on to the wide receivers. I know you've been looking forward to this. Antonio Brown, he's now an Oakland Raider. And Odell Beckham Jr., he's now a Cleveland Brown. We're talking about elite receivers. What is an elite receiver? How can they affect their team? What good are they for? Especially when you're talking about young QBs like Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. What's your take on? Let's start with the Antonio Brown trade, Duncan. What's your take on that?
Well, yes, you mentioned sort of the value of an elite wide receiver, and me and you, we've had a lot of conversations about that.
Alshon Jeffrey is yes. Elite, and I won't be taking ats at this time.
I'm not going to labour the point, but I will point out again that Marvin Harrison is probably, the last truly great wide receiver to win the Super Bowl, arguably, and we won't get into that. But AJ Brown. That's
for another podcast, listener. You stay tuned for that. Wait for that to drop. That's going to be a doozy.
Indeed, stay tuned all summer. Oakland, they need to do something. They need to help Derek Carr. They need to find out if Derek Carr is the one. They're already paying him $22 million this year. So the Brown money is going to really limit them going forward. They've got Tyrell Williams as well. So they can't really do much more in free agency. They've also brought in a tackle and a safety. So that's possibly them done, because as well as being cap poor, they are actually cash poor as well. They can't physically afford to pay anyone else, is what some people are saying. So the move is wild. Is he a problem? Yeah, maybe, but problems still play well, don't they? I mean, look at George Best.
Is he a problem, or is he did he become a problem because he so desperately wanted to get out of Pittsburgh? I mean, now he's out. Surely he'll be a dream to work with.
That's $1 million question, isn't it? I mean, is he gonna turn up? I'm sure he will. But Oakland is a team in transition, and they're moving, and they're very poor on both sides of the ball. He's 30, 31, and as Chris Wesling said this week on their podcast, I mean, Oakland are perhaps paying for the down years of Antonio Brown. So it's a very interesting move for me, and that'll be great this year, and maybe people think it's vindicated, and that may be it. It's
maybe. Maybe I tell you who isn't on the downswing of their career, and we'll come back to you in a moment, Duncan. Shona, Odell Beckham has swapped the blue of New York for the brown orange, if you will, of Cleveland. What do you make of that absolutely sensational trade?
Well, that is just, for me, one of the most biggest trades of the free agency, because you had the New York Giants GM insisting that he wasn't going to trade Beckham, and now he's at the Cleveland Browns. If you ask me, Cleveland are looking very, very good going into next season. They've got a young QB in Baker. They've just added Odell Beckham. I think the Giants did. To me, I would never trade him for what the Giants accepted. But again, I'm not a general manager, so maybe I just don't really know what's going on in the NFL world. But yeah, I think that's a sensational trade, and I think the Browns are going to kick ass next season.
If just sticking on the AFC North, obviously the Browns have added all of these pieces, and they already actually had some very talented pieces on the roster, and now that they've added a couple with the draft still to come. The Steelers look like they've traded away their superstar receiver. They've not got their superstar running back, although James Conner filled in excellently. Are the Browns the favourites for the AFC North, Dunk?
I'm going to say no, and Shona, you're going to be so annoyed because I'm here comes pessimist Duncan again. I'm going to just look for a second at the other football. Look at Manchester City and Chelsea, and when they first became rich, and they brought in all those players, and they didn't gel for a year or two. So I still think there's a year in the Browns yet before we see them really perform. That said, you've pointed out the other teams in the AFC North. The Pittsburgh Steelers are, I don't know what they're doing. The Baltimore Ravens had the number one defense last year, and they've just let all of them go. And the Bengals. They could do it, but
the Bengals.
Yes, quite. I'm not going to start putting my money on the Browns. They'll do well. They're a team on the rise, and Mayfield has turned out to be a great player, and they can put players around him because he's on his rookie deal. So they've got a good future, but I don't think it's this season. I'd probably say the following season.
So I think I'm quite tired of people exercising this kind of caution with them. I love what Freddie Kitchens did with the offense. I love Baker Mayfield. How can you not love Baker Mayfield? The pieces they've got Olivier Vernon bookending now with Myles Garrett. They've already got Denzel Ward there, who's had a sensational rookie year and you believe could be a legit lockdown corner. To me, they are the favourites. This doesn't feel like a Browns organization of years gone by where it's been filled with instability. Dorsey knows what he's doing. Freddie Kitchens showed enough to know, to show everyone that he knows what he's doing. I really do believe that this is a Browns team that could completely, rams this thing and go from, the absolute worst to, putting up 12 wins and everyone will be stunned. And then when you look at it, we shouldn't really be.
Hey, I'm not saying 7 and 9. They're going to be a fun team to watch, and they're going to put some wins together. I just don't think you should put your Super Bowl bet on them. I
think though, there's been teams in the past though that have done this in free agency who have brought in all these big names and big contracts and it hasn't worked out for them. So I'm not saying this will be the same with the Browns, but it could go that way. And I wouldn't write off the Baltimore Ravens either. Like Lamar Jackson's a fabulous QB. They've now got Earl there. So... Well,
you ruined that because that was my link to the next bit. Thank you. But no, you have just mentioned it. So go. Yes, they've signed Earl Thomas. He's now in Baltimore because they cut Eric Weddle. He got 4 years, $55 million, $32 million in guarantees, and he averages $14.3 million over the first 3 years. Shona, I know Earl Thomas is your boy, so I will let you continue that point now because, of course, the Ravens are still there.
I'm going to miss Earl Thomas so much not being in Seattle, but that was inevitable after the way he left there last season. Great for the Ravens to pick him up. We still really need a safety, and we still haven't got one, so that's a nice little scare factor for me heading into the new season. And Earl's in his prime, right? And if he stays healthy, that is like a great signing for them, in my opinion.
I don't personally believe Earl Thomas is in his prime. I think he is on the back nine of his career, and like you say, he's had a couple of big injuries. Now that isn't to say that I don't believe Earl Thomas is an all-world safety. I do, but at his prime, he was, he was absolutely something else. Now a slight drop off from that is still a top 3 safety in the league to me. But either way, and the comps that you'll see, I've seen a few comparisons online to Ed Reed. And they're actually not that far fetched, are they? When you think about the two players and what they mean to the teams that they've played on.
Precisely. Earl Thomas is 29, and he's now playing on the same team for the same coach that coached Ed Reed. Well into his 30s. So I think there's a lot more to come from Earl Thomas.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's going to absolutely kill it.
Let's just talk quickly about this safety market, because last year we saw it really was a bit of a dead market, and this year, Landon Collins completely reset the market with what he got from Washington. Tyrann Mathieu got 3 years, $42 million from Kansas City. He's averaging $14 million a year, and KC priced out the Houston Texans to land him. Tashaun Gibson has gone over to Houston, incidentally, and he's on $7.5 million annually. And then we've got LaMarcus Joyner, who's another free agent who's gone over to the Raiders. He's earning $10.5 million annually as well. So what do we think about the safety market now, and what do we think? I mean, please pick a player that I've just mentioned there and a fit for how you like those deals. Dunk, we'll start with you.
Well, I guess what confuses me is the value of the safety. Teams seem happy to give them up and sign a new one, bring them in for 2 years, rotate them. Maybe the Seahawks are going to roll with Tedrick Thompson this year, and they seem quite happy to do that. And it just confuses me so much, because you're giving Landon Collins the same money, virtually the same money as a Trey Flowers, who is a good defensive end. He may or may not fit a different scheme to what he was doing in New England, which was completely unique. Yet you've got your superstar safety, next to your Midland defensive ends. It just confuses me, But if you're going to play the scheme that suits that superstar safety, go get them. Why not?
I mean, here's the thing: it's free agency, and while we complain about the money, I mean, that's what free agency is. You're gonna overpay for guys, right? That's just the belly of that's just the belly of the beast, is it not?
It is, and certain teams like value. I mean, look, the Dolphins this year have been totally impressive, not doing what they've always done, which but then there's the Colts, who are also not signing players, and they've got $100 million in the bank. But of course, we're talking about safeties. My favourite move is probably Tyrann Mathieu going to the Chiefs, who really need to rebuild that defence. And I think he's a great piece for them. Really good, possibly a little underrated type of player.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think Matthews, he's not only a good safety, he's versatile. He'll come in and play slot corner for you as well, which is you crave, defensive coordinators crave that kind of versatility in any scheme now. It doesn't matter what your scheme is. If you're a versatile guy, and you're someone of Matthews' quality, you're going to get paid, right?
100%, yeah.
Any names jump out off the page to you there, Shona? Any in the safety market? There's LaMarcus Joyner to Oakland. He had a really nice year with the Rams last year, and obviously was a star of Hard Knocks not so long ago, where he said he'd quit and work at Walmart. He doesn't have to now. He's got $10.5 million a year in the bank with Oakland. Anything on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're going to pick up any safety, you want to pick up somebody who's been on the Rams who got to the Super Bowl, so that's a good move for the Oakland Raiders, if you ask me. But yeah, on the whole, I think the safety market has been quite interesting to follow. I've been desperately waiting to see who Seattle are going to sign. Obviously, they don't want to. So yeah.
I mean, you tagged Frank Clark, although that saga looks like it's nowhere near an end. He was reportedly not very happy to be tagged.
Well, that's interesting, because the local media said he was happy to be tagged, due to the fact that he's a guy that's came from like a really hard background. He's guaranteed the money. Obviously, he's now saying he's not going to sign the tag, which is completely fair enough. If he doesn't want to sign it, he doesn't want to sign it. But it means the Seahawks have got to move pretty quickly and try and get him to sign a new deal. And I think they should, because he absolutely killed it last season. He was amazing.
I'm just going to come back to you again, because just quickly on the franchise tag, we have a lot of different opinions on it. Obviously, we've seen scenarios where guys play on the tag but then insist that they won't do it again. DeMarcus Lawrence springs to mind. We've seen guys, Josh Norman, when he was in Carolina, actually had his rescinded. And then we've seen players who are happy to sign it. What are your thoughts, Shona, on the franchise tag stuff? And I mean, it's hard to say because we're not players, but as a player, would you be happy to be tagged? It's easy for a fan to say you're earning 15-16 million for 1 year, isn't it? So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on the franchise tag itself.
I think the tag works if you are, you're guaranteed a new deal, like with that team. I think it works if you're on the tag, but the team have got a deal ready for you. Like, this is the deal we're going to give you, and they're happy to sign it. It doesn't work in terms of like you've mentioned with players before, when they play on the tag and they don't sign. Like, well, Bell was tagged and then he opted not to play for a year. So it works in some ways and it works not so well in other ways, in my opinion.
Dunk, any feelings on the franchise tag stuff?
Trying to get my head around it, to be honest. I mean, I guess the main problem from a player's point of view would be if they want to leave and they can't. They feel like they've worked their contract and suddenly, they're having another year out of them. And hang on a minute, I thought I was going to leave. But I mean, the money's good. If it's still what I thought it was a few years ago, it's the average of the top 5 at your position is the money. Frank Clark specifically would be 17.1, and compared to his rookie deal, that's a major payday.
I mean, the theory is, and you see a lot of players talk about it, a lot of it isn't even about the money. It's they need to know if they're going to be in that city long term. They've got families there.
Right.
And if you're signing long-term deals, especially with the way the cap's going, the argument is Frank Clark could get 17 million a year over 5 years and be secure, with his family in another city, knowing he's settled there for 4 or 5 years. I can see that side of it as well.
Absolutely, yeah. At 25, 26 years old, you want to know what your future is. You're probably newly married. You've probably got young children. I can see that totally.
I'm not sure if Clark wants to leave Seattle, though. Like, you don't get the impression that he does. It's not like a huge thing where, what was the guy's name at the Cowboys who was tagged, but he wants to leave?
Lawrence.
Yes. So you have him who's made it vocal that he wants to leave the Cowboys, where Clark hasn't made it vocal that he wants to leave Seattle. He might do on like in the background scenes, but to fans and to most of the people that follow him, there's no indication that he wants to leave Seattle at the moment.
Anyway, we're going to move on. Oh, and we've got a quick plug coming up. Duncan, you are acting GM for the aforementioned Oakland Raiders in the upcoming NFL UK mock. So, you're bound to, well, we've just discussed the feelings that you've had on Antonio Brown. We're going to talk about Trent Brown in a moment, but just tell us where people can follow that little mock that you've got going.
Yeah, it's been going for, I think, 4 or 5 years, and it's a very, very well organised, well drilled mock where there's 32 GMs, and they're all fans in the UK who are really involved in the scene, for want of a better word. We'll all mock. We'll do it realistically. We've got trades. Everyone is really up on the draft and the players, and we'll study everything and take it very, very seriously. It can be followed on Twitter. There's a hashtag NFLUK mock. It's the same as the Twitter handle, and it starts on the 19th. And yes, for the second year in a row, I've got the Raiders. Last year, I managed to get myself Deron Payne in the first round, and I think I did significantly better than in real life. So
absolutely.
Yeah, my first move as acting GM this year was to sack Tom Cable.
That's a smart
I'm sure
move.
that will thrill their new tackle, Trent Brown, who is going to be an interesting one. He's gone from Dante Scarnecchia at the Patriots to Tom Cable at the Raiders. So
absolutely. Well, don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. Don't
spoil it.
Maybe later on down in one of the other segments we do, we might bring his name back up. But listener, you're gonna have to stick around for that. While we've got you here as well, let's plug some of the delightful content that you can go and check out. Check it out right now. Well, not right now because you're listening to this pod, but check it out after the pod. You can head to 99yards.com. Got it, .co.uk last time, but it is 99yards.com, and you can follow all the wicked content that we've got on there. Oliver Hodgkinson, one of our quality writers, he had an article on Drew Samia, I believe, Oklahoma offensive lineman, who'll be coming out in the draft, so you can go and check that out. And if you, like me, are a Madden player, you can go on there. Kadeem Simmons does a wonderful set of articles based around the video game, and he's got one up there recently talking about how EA can make the game better for fans. So you should definitely go and check out those pieces. Go and check out everything else that you want to get on there. We've got plenty of free agency stuff from our wonderful team. You can follow us on Twitter at 99 Yards as well. So there you are, listener. That is our shameless plug. But we will move on now to our next segment, because we're going to be talking about some free agents who haven't been picked up, maybe some under the radar ones, or maybe some surprises of guys that are still searching for deals. Jared Cook still doesn't have a deal. I know he's visiting the New Orleans Saints today. I think he had a visit with them. But this guy was Derek Carr's most reliable target for the Oakland Raiders. He started all 16 games over both years that he was there with them. 896 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns last year. Was excellent down the stretch for Green Bay in 2015, 2016. The playoff game that we beat Dallas, you'll know it, Green Bay fans, you'll know it. I'm really surprised he's not got a deal. I understand the tight end class in this draft is very strong, but he to me feels like someone who should have been snapped up quicker.
Maybe.
Cool. Dunk, anyone on the list who surprises you that still hasn't got a deal?
Yeah, Ziggy Ansah. I know he's had a down year or two, perhaps with injury as well, but pass rushing talent of his caliber is so rare. I'm surprised people I've heard nothing about him for the whole week. It just really surprises me.
In Houston, obviously he's a free agent now. Surprisingly, his market, at least from reports on Twitter, and obviously if you follow some of the insiders who really know their stuff and are trusted, it seems his market is actually quite small, and there haven't been many visits for him at all. What do we think? What do we think about Houston? Presumably he still has something left. He was excellent for KC down the stretch, and I believe he had nine sacks last year, and he's not far removed from being one of the best, going head to head with JJ Watt for Defensive Player of the Year honors. So
he's a player who I definitely think still has it, not just in the pass rushing. He's still a beast in the run game. But at this stage of his career, I believe him to be the sort of guy who's going to get signed by a contender on a 1-year deal, and probably
I look forward to him being the Super Bowl MVP with the Patriots then.
Well, exactly. He's a classic Patriot selection. But these contenders, they're contenders for a reason. They're contenders because they wait and they pick up sensible free agents at a decent price, and that's probably what's happening. They're probably waiting for the price to come down a little, and he'll end up on one of those contenders. He'll be rushing for the Rams or the Patriots or some such team like that for 1 year, and then probably play for another one next year, and that will be his story now, I think.
Are there any moves that teams have made that concern you at all? Shona, we'll start with you. There are every year in free agency we see teams make a lot of moves, and I think we all get as fans, we maybe get caught up in the hype of the free agency and wanting to see new players and our team actually do a thing to try and make that team stronger. But as we know, every year there are always some horrific pickups and deals and guys that just maybe don't fit with the new team. Are there any deals that you look at the moment that seem a concern to you?
I wouldn't, from a team point of view, no. But from a player point of view, I was quite surprised that Golden Tate went to the New York Giants.
And you're breaking news for us there as well. That came out just before we started recording, listener.
Yeah, I love Golden Tate, obviously, because Seattle days and Super Bowl. And obviously he was at the Eagles. It was at the Lions last season beginning, and then went to the Eagles, and now he's obviously free agency and he's gone to New York Giants. It's a good move for them, the Giants. I'm just not sure how good it is for Golden Tate. If he wants to win another ring, like we mentioned, I'm not sure the Giants will be up there challenging because they still have to rebuild in a lot of positions. They've lost Beckham now. So that was a bit of a puzzler for me, I must admit.
Yeah, he's almost exclusively, I'd say, best as a slot guy. He's Mr. Yards after the catch, isn't he? and a safety blanket for any quarterback that he's ever been in the lineup with. It seems that a team with, let's say, brighter immediate aspirations, shall we, Duncan? It seems a team with better prospects going forward could have really used a guy like him.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. I think the Giants are in a rebuild, and perhaps Golden Tate isn't the right man to be there.
I mean, let's face it, he's definitely not a like-for-like replacement for Odell Beckham, is he? So, does it just seem like they need a receiver? He was the best one available, and they've brought him in. I mean, that's your approach. Fair game, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be number one. I think one of their two first-round picks will be going on a new receiver to replace Beckham, and perhaps they're going for a new quarterback, and a reliable slot receiver is the type of guy to help a new quarterback along. Maybe it's a bit of advanced planning there.
I mean, you're acting GM for the Raiders, but let's say you cast an eye over every team in the NFL, as we know you do. Is there a move or a particular set of moves that a team has made or a player has gone to that you don't particularly like yourself, Dunk?
Yeah, I'm troubled by the Bears.
Oh, good. I like that. As a Packers fan, I like that. Talk to me.
They had such potential this season. They've got good young players. Last year they signed people like Taylor Gabriel, who are just really
thoroughly
talented.
Underrated as a receiver.
Exactly. Completely underrated. And maybe the people that they've signed are also underrated. Buster Screen is a decent enough slot corner. But
he got burned. He got burned quite a bit last year for the Jets. Although they weren't exactly the model of solid defense under Todd Bowles in his final year. But
exactly.
And
at $16 million, Mike Davis was the third choice running back in Seattle, and he's a good player and a better man. But for 2 years for Mike Davis,
let me ask the question.
As well.
Let me ask the question: is Mike Davis better than Jordan Howard? Because all the noise coming out of Chicago is that Jordan Howard probably won't be on that roster come week one. They're basically actively shopping him, and it seems Mike Davis is the replacement. And if that is the scenario, is that an upgrade at the position?
I don't think it is. And again, no offense to Mike Davis, he was fantastic for us in his role. He's never going to be a starter, and their other starter is Tariq Cohen, who's he's not an every down back. So that move also confuses me. But the biggest concern for me is Cordarrelle Patterson, who I will declare doesn't have it as a wide receiver. And although the Patriots used him there, isn't a running back either. I don't know what he is or what they're going to use him for. At $10 million over 2 years, I think that's too much of a stretch. $5 million a year for him when they could have got someone much better for that money.
I mean, you'd think if any coach in the NFL and there are very few could use a player like Patterson, Matt Nagy would be one. No, he's very very creative. Maybe Patterson could inherit some of the Taylor Gabriel type plays that they were.
Absolutely. Maybe I'm doing them a disservice because he is a very talented offensive coach. But Trubisky is still learning at this level. I don't think Cordarrelle Patterson's the type of player he needs.
I mean, my concern, and it is a Raiders player I'm concerned about, and this is where we bring back Trent Brown, because he is the player I am concerned about. So he was a right tackle who the Patriots moved to left tackle. And because they're New England and they have phenomenal coaching, it worked. And now he's the highest paid left tackle in the league. The Raiders are going to plug him in at tackle. They've kicked last year's first round pick for them, Colton Miller, over to right tackle. Incidentally, I think Colton Miller might have been the worst starting left tackle in the NFL last year. He really was that bad, in my opinion. This to me seems like the sort of thing where Trent Brown may regress back to the mean, and you'll see maybe his true consistency will be somewhere, a notch below where he was at, especially during that dominant playoff run for the Patriots. Am I being overly mean about that? Because the more I thought about it, the more it felt like one of those moves where, the Raiders are going to be trying to cut their losses with Brown in 2 years, 2.5 years or so.
Very talented player, technique-wise. He is phenomenally gifted in everything that is textbook about a player on the offensive line. But I strongly feel that he needs to be in the right place. I don't know whether it's his mind or the scheme or something like that. I think he needs to be in the right place on the right line with the right coaching and the right players around him. And I don't think he's going to find that in Oakland. And I think he is going to be going to underwhelm on that contract.
And just before we get to our ending listener, we've got a couple of bits of, well, I guess they're not so much breaking anymore, but we'll address them very quickly anyway. Former Packers safety HaHa Clinton-Dix has agreed a 1-year deal with the Chicago Bears. And former Patriots first rounder Malcolm Brown, he has agreed a 3-year deal with the New Orleans Saints. Incidentally, the Raiders have just cut Jordy Nelson as well. They paid him $3 million, and they've now cut him. It was probably expected with the arrival of Antonio Brown and Tyrell Williams there as well. Jordy Nelson hadn't really been the same since his maybe penultimate year in Green Bay. Any thoughts on those most recent moves, guys and girls?
I think Brown to the Malcolm Brown. Malcolm Brown, is that his name?
Yeah, Malcolm Brown.
Yeah, it's okay. I think him going to the Saints, that is a tasty move, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints had a really nice front seven going on, didn't they? And then unfortunately they lost Sheldon Rankins to a torn Achilles, who would routinely eat a man alive at least one a game. He was playing so well, which is a bummer for them. So do we think that this move is kind of addressing a need, because it looked like they weren't quite the same, especially run defense. They weren't quite the same once he went out of the lineup.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I just think that's a brilliant signing for them, especially if they're Drew Brees is wanting to get his, one more Super Bowl under his name. That's the kind of player you add to your squad.
Yeah, absolutely. And 15 million, so it seems like at least if we do work with nice odd divided numbers, that's 5 million a year for Malcolm Brown. Duncan, any thoughts on any of those recent deals?
Yeah, just on the Saints, they're going classic, aren't they? They're going Madden defense. They've got two strong defensive tackles now who can take care of the run, and then they've got Jordan and Davenport on the outside. It's totally textbook. It's very, very interesting. They've also got a young defensive tackle there as well, who came in and played pretty well for Rankins. So they're very deep on the line now. It's very, very impressive.
Wonderful. Well, before we go, guys and girls, and if any pets are listening, obviously, I hope that you have all seen some of the posts that our wonderful editor Liz Bandari has been putting out on the old social media. She organised meetups in the summer. The first happens in Manchester before an NFL live event on April 16th. It's free, so get your tickets for that. And there's also, I am being told, the Big Fat NFL Quiz of the Year, which sounds wonderful, on July 6th. So make sure you check those out. And if you don't know where to check those out, you can follow Liz Bandari on Twitter at NFLGirlUK. And she's always got some wonderful, wonderful things going on there. And she always arranges, especially in season, she always hosts an NFL UK chat. So you can go and check that out, get involved, make some new NFL friends on the old social media. That is all we have time for today. So thank you very much, listener. Thank you very much for tuning in once more. Like I said, head over to 99yards.com, read yourself some articles. There's some wonderful content on there. You can follow us on Twitter at 99yards, and also there's an Instagram handle that has recently been set up. And that is the same handle. It's 99 yards. Shona, Duncan, thank you very, very much for joining me today. It's been an absolute blast talking through some of these big free agency deals. If you're a regular listener, or even if you're not a regular listener, if you've listened to this for the first time today and you think, hey, this is pretty cool, I'd like to come back, then why don't you leave us a review? We will be very, very grateful for that. thank you as always. I've been Ryan Conway, your host. Hopefully Liz will be back on the next pod, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you.